With the 59th pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Roberto Aguayo, kicker, Florida State.
In 2016, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers walked into the NFL Draft and did something that stopped every football fan dead in their tracks. They traded up into the second round, burning a third and fourth rounder in the process, and they weren't doing it so they could grab a franchise quarterback. They weren't gunning for a generational pass rusher or athletic freak that happened to fall out of the first round by some miracle. No, they traded multiple draft picks to move up and select a kicker in the second round. This team believed that they were getting a guy that could potentially be one of the greatest kickers to ever put on a helmet in the NFL. A guy with a collegiate career that was so historically dominant, it felt impossible for him to fail at the highest professional level. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could not be any more wrong. Instead of this story being a fond memory, we take a step back and examine the drafting of Roberto Aguayo with a different lens. We think about how one of the best specialists in college football history became a laughingstock in the NFL, and how the Buccaneers were the orchestrators of the entire incident. So without further ado, let us begin. Now, there was a reason why Aguayo was drafted in the second round, or at least why the Buccaneers felt confident enough to pull the trigger on a move this huge. It was because during his time at Florida State, he wasn't just good, he was historically great. He won the Lou Groza Award, which is essentially the Heisman Trophy of kicking, in the year 2013. He led the entire ACC in field goals made in both 2013 and 2014. In 3 seasons as a Seminole, he connected on 69 of 78 field goal attempts, which is an 88.5% success rate. And last but not least, he made all 198 of his extra point attempts. And if by some chance you are incredibly hard to impress, let me give you one more stat about his college career. When Aguayo first arrived at Florida State, he made the first 70 kicks of his career without a single miss, setting a new FSU record for consecutive makes to begin a career. He was so dominant that ESPN later put him on their all-time collegiate special teams Mount Rushmore, alongside legends like Sebastian Janikowski, Shane Lechler, and Braden Mann. As much as this term gets thrown around very loosely these days, Aguayo was supposed to be a generational talent. A guy who seemed immune to pressure, immune to failure, and immune to the very concept of just missing a kick. So when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came calling in April of 2016, there was actual logic behind the decision. The more shocking part of the choice was that they traded up for Aguayo, and I think many of us can imagine a team being in love with a player, but understanding that positionally, it wouldn't be wise to try and move up to go get him. The fact that Tampa was willing to ignore that thought makes this that much more interesting. They sent away their 3rd round pick, number 74 overall, and their 4th round pick, number 106, to move up just 15 spots to pick 59 in the 2nd round to select a kicker. The decision made Roberto Aguayo the first kicker selected in the 2nd round of the NFL Draft since Mike Nugent in 2005, and unlike Nugent, who went in the 2nd round without a trade, the Buccaneers had actively sacrificed future assets to make sure that they got him before anyone else could. Analysts were obviously baffled at the decision, the media was skeptical if this was ever going to work out. The football world collectively couldn't believe what they had just seen, because in NFL history, this simply isn't done. Kickers don't go in the 2nd round, and front offices certainly don't trade up to guarantee that they get one. It kinda makes you wonder why Tampa felt so inclined to make the jump up. Could there have potentially been more teams looking to swing on Aguayo this early on in the draft, or were the Buccaneers so in love that they couldn't fathom the wait? Let me know down below in the comments. See, the Buccaneers had convinced themselves that Aguayo was the exception to the trend of kickers going later in the draft. They felt that his college accuracy was so elite and so unprecedented that the standard rules of kicker evaluation simply did not apply to him. And maybe, if they had just stayed put and let him fall to them naturally, this story ends a little differently. Probably not all that much, but differently nonetheless. Unfortunately, they didn't stay put, and they telegraphed to the entire league, and more importantly to Aguayo himself, that they weren't taking his college career lightly, and that he would now be walking into the most high-pressure situation that he has ever been in. The guy hadn't even played a single NFL snap, and already, expectations had been set that no rookie kicker could ever reasonably meet. So, after an offseason where Aguayo had the microscope on him seemingly every day during practice, he made it into the first regular season game, which went perfect, not a thing to complain about. But then week 2 arrived, and we had to watch him miss a field goal. Week 3, another miss, and an extra point. Over his next 2 games after that, he missed 3 more of his next 8 attempts. By this point, it was a major emphasis in the NFL. Every single time he lined up for the kick, it didn't matter if it was an extra point, a 50-plus yarder, or a chip shot, the media impatiently waited for the result, and they just zoomed in on his face the entire time before and after. By early November in his rookie season, Roberto Aguayo had converted just 58% of his field goals. Every other kicker in the NFL had made at least 70% at the time. Now, I will say that he locked in a little bit down the stretch of the season. He was 16 for 20 in the final games of the regular season, though after the start he had and the expectations laid out in front of him, it really didn't even matter because the narrative was already set. It felt like the whole world had their minds made up on him already, and that he just wasn't worth the draft pick. By the time his rookie season came to a close, he had missed the same number of kicks in one NFL season as he had in his entire 3-year college career. 9 misses at FSU, 9 misses as a rookie in the NFL. He did have one very bright moment during this tough year. In Week 11, he went 4 for 4 on field goals and was named NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. It was a flash of the player the Buccaneers thought they had drafted initially, and now, looking back, it's a reminder of what could have been. But a single good week wasn't enough to reverse the narrative that we saw set out in front of him. By season's end, Aguayo finished 22 for 31 on field goals, which was a 71% success rate, and dead last in the NFL among kickers who attempted at least 2 kicks. And here's where the organization made it crystal clear what they thought of that performance. In the 2017 offseason, the Buccaneers signed veteran kicker Nick Folk and gave Folk a guaranteed salary that was higher than Aguayo's entire 2017 wage at the time. The message could not have been any louder. Time was running out and fast for Aguayo in Tampa Bay, and it had only been 1 season. In his first preseason game of the 2017 campaign, the story took an immediate turn for the worst. Aguayo lined up for an extra point and missed. Later in that same game, he lined up for a 47-yard field goal, and he missed that too. The very next morning, the Buccaneers waived him, and his entire NFL starting career, from the second-round pick to the cut point, had lasted exactly 1 season and 2 preseason kicks. The Bears later claimed him off waivers the very next day, but 20 days later they cut him also. He landed on the Panthers practice squad in October of 2017, though he was once again released in December. He signed a futures contract after that with the Chargers in 2018, won a perfect 3 for 3 in the preseason, but once again was waived before the regular season started, losing the job to Caleb Sturgis. By 2019, he was working an internship with the PGA of America, and it wasn't until December of 2020 when he got one final shot in the NFL when the New England Patriots signed him to their practice squad. He ultimately never appeared in a regular season game though, and they've released him in June 2021. And that was it for Aguayo in the NFL, the most celebrated kicker in college football history. It got ESPN put on their all-time special teams Mount Rushmore, never kicked in an NFL regular season game after his rookie year. So what actually happened? Because there was no question that his technique was flawless in college. How could that not have translated to the next level? There is a phenomenon in sports sometimes called the yips, a mental block that's so severe that the muscle memory you've spent a lifetime building simply stops working. Baseball pitchers can lose the ability to throw strikes, golfers can't hit a putt, and kickers stand at the intersection of isolation and total accountability, where every miss is amplified, replayed, and dissected when they walk out there. It is 10 times worse when you're a second-round draft pick where your team traded up to get you. Anything Aguayo did would have been blown up on the big screen. Aguayo had been a big game kicker his entire life. He had performed in front of 80,000 fans at Doak Campbell Stadium. He had hit clutch kicks in BCS level pressure situations. The crowd didn't seem to bother him, and the stakes didn't bother him either in college. But it was entirely different at the NFL level because he had the weight of being a second-round kicker, the guy that the Buccaneers famously traded up for, the kicker who was supposed to be the exception to every rule that we knew about the position, and that was a weight that no college environment could have prepared him for, and once the misses began, they fed on themselves and each one made the next one harder. You can really thank the NFL media for this. Roberto Aguayo did not fail because he lacked talent. His college resume remains one of the most impressive in the history of the position. He failed because an organization placed a weight on his shoulders that no kicker, no matter how talented, could reasonably carry. Trading up in the second round didn't just cost the Buccaneers 2 draft picks, it cost Aguayo the one thing every specialist needs more than anything else: a fair chance to fail quietly, learn, and grow. Instead, every miss was magnified, every game carried the burden of a front office decision that the entire league had already called reckless. And once his confidence broke, there was just no rebuilding it under that microscope. I mean, this man had a camera on his face constantly the second he stepped on a practice field. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers wanted to change the way the NFL valued kickers. What they actually did was end a promising career before it ever really started. Now, what do you think? Was Roberto Aguayo a victim of the Buccaneers, or did he simply fail to transition to the next level all on his own? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest stories in the NFL. I'll also be making posts where you can go vote on which video topics you'd like to see me cover, so go vote on that whenever you get the chance, and I'll see all of you in the next one.